Hi everyone, I'm Lillian.
And I'm Felipe.
And we are the Postmodern family.
We are Americans living in the UK in search of Great Britain.
We make 3 new videos every single week, and we would love it if you subscribed.
This episode, we're going to react to GQ's interview of Jordan Peterson from October 2018.
So we're making this video because a lot of people have watched our reaction to Cathy Newman's interview of Jordan Peterson from like 2 years ago, was that? It seems like quite a while ago, and people are often saying you should pause while you make comments, etc., etc. So this video, we're going to watch a short clip from the full, it's like an hour and a half interview. We're only going to watch 8 minutes, about 9 minutes of it, and we will pause this time if we want to make any comments. I do want to just tell you the reason why we didn't pause and we just powered through that other one was because we actually recorded that whole thing twice. And the first time, I don't remember what happened, but it didn't work, or maybe the video didn't work. And then the second time through, I was just like, please, let's get this over with, because we had already sat through a whole 30 minutes of the same thing, and we're going to do it again. So
yeah. So to follow on from our commentary on the Cathy Newman interview of Jordan Peterson, other people recommended this British GQ interview. Apparently it was done by this lady called Helen Lewis. So British GQ themselves described this interview as an interrogation of Jordan Peterson. So from what I've read in the commentary around the internet is that it was a much more aggressive and confrontational interview than the Cathy Newman interview, believe it or not.
So we'll see how Jordan Peterson holds up, I guess, to the interrogation.
Did you have different ambitions for your daughter and for your son?
Some of them were different. I encouraged my daughter in her desire to be a mother, which is not something I did with my son.
Wait, I need to pause that already. That's awesome, because I love after he says it, he purses his lips and he kind of tilts his head like,
what are you going to do about that?
Yeah, basically, he knows that she's like...
That's a trigger.
Already triggered inside. And of course, she's asking this very pointed interrogatory question, like, how dare you
it's a trap
have
question.
Different expectations,
ambitions
for your daughter versus your son, for
on the basis of
boy
sex.
versus the girl. Yeah.
Did you encourage him in his desire to be a father?
Absolutely.
Right. So you encourage both of them to be a parent.
Right, but those are different.
Yeah.
Okay.
So did she say follower? Did we miss something?
Let's go back to 10 seconds.
Okay.
Is that 10 seconds? Yeah, 10 seconds.
This is not something I did with my son.
Did you encourage him in his desire to be a father?
Absolutely.
Right. So you encourage both of them to be a parent.
Okay, so she was clarifying. Did you encourage your son to be a father?
Oh, I see.
Was the follow-up. He said, I encouraged my daughter to be a mother, which I didn't do for my son. And she said, well, what did you do?
Okay.
And that was her way of saying, well, therefore, you just encourage both of them to be parents.
Okay.
That's the equalizer.
Oh, I see.
Right, but those are different.
Yeah.
So,
I believe.
and yeah, I mean, and in some sense, I think it's harder for young women because, of course, the problem of integrating family with career is a more complex problem for women to solve. So, and I spent a lot of time talking to her about how she might solve that. I wouldn't say that we came up with anything that was spectacularly original or successful, but I at least let her know that whatever pathway she chose was fine with me as long as she was being honest with herself about what it was that she wanted. But also that, I'm not a fan of the idea that the most fundamental orientation that a person is likely to have in their life is career. I don't believe that's true for most people. I certainly don't believe it's true for most women. And I think the evidence supports that claim quite straightforwardly. So,
however, it is the only thing that you get paid for under capitalism. Right?
Man, live.
But that's
Man
that's
alive.
How can you say something like that? It's so cliched.
Well,
it's so painful to hear that.
It may be cliche, but it nonetheless is true, right?
Look,
Women do
it's
more,
not
much
capitalism.
more. Well,
for God's sake.
It is.
No, it isn't. You have to invest into a child for 18 years before they have any economic utility. It's a consequence of delayed economic utility. We don't know how to monetize it. It's not a consequence of capitalism. It's a consequence of the fact that human beings have an 18-year dependency. How do you monetize that, even in principle?
Well,
we don't know.
We did used to send them up chimneys, to be fair. And at that point,
what's
really interesting is at that point, children were seen as being much more the property of the man. And as they become economically useless, all the legal studies show that that's when we start moving to a model of female custody, right? Because it was about caring labour. But this is the point I'm making. Is
model. Look, I'll tell you, there are plenty of men who are not very happy about the model of female custody. And that would, include the, 85% of men who are essentially denied 50-50 custody when they divorce and have young children. So I wouldn't think that one of our major problems, or at least a major unidimensional problem, is the proclivity of men to foist off the custody of their children onto women. There's certainly another side of that argument.
There is, and I do think that actually a lot of anger has been generated by the way we have in Britain anyway, or England and Wales, we have an adversarial fault-based divorce system, and that's something that's changing. But what it does is encourage people to come in on day one and say, if you want to get divorced, you're going to have to make out a case that the other person has been a bastard.
It doesn't matter, because if you move to a non-fault-based divorce system, then all that happens is the fault shifts to who should get custody. So it doesn't remove the acrimony by any stretch of the imagination. It just shifts it to custody of the children.
I mean, this is crazy because she's so far gone, like in terms of
she's brought her agenda to the interview. This is not an interview of Jordan Peterson. This is a platform for her to express her views.
Oh, interesting.
That's
but
what she's
not afraid that she's gonna lose, like that she's gonna be made to look like a fool.
No, because she's dropping these statements in passing as sort of throwaway comments in the hopes that she can continue on to like another question. Mm-hmm. So, for example, the statement about as children lost their labor value, fathers stopped being interested in children, and it became a mother's responsibility. She then moved on to the next thing, and he just said, "Hold on, man alive." So she's almost like just dropping these leftist progressive statements to then move on to the next question. Perhaps subconsciously, because she knows a lot of eyes will be on this interview, and she's just spreading these.
She just wants to spread the ideas.
Yeah.
I see. Because like the whole idea that mothers are more caring and that therefore they should have full custody is a huge problem. I think because she was saying that they wanted to have more mothers care for the children because the fathers were less interested in the economic use of their children. That's why they should be taken over by the mother's care. Whereas I don't think that's true. And she's just totally making that up in terms of why. It's true that today's government believes that mothers should care for the children more than fathers because they're more nurturing, more caring. But they're totally throwing away the other idea of teaching your children to respect authority.
But I don't think that's part of this. I don't think she's laid the claim that mothers are more nourishing. I haven't heard that.
She did. She said that was the reason why.
That was the perception why. So she's making a critique of the development of custody. Mm-hmm. Okay? So the development of custody is this. It's that when children lost their economic value, men were less interested, and the courts therefore unjustly tilted towards custody should go to women because they believe women are more nourishing. So she's going to then follow up and say that places a disadvantage on women economically. So that was an unfair development in custody.
Oh, interesting.
That's where I think she's coming from.
I think she's coming from the opposite, where of course the government did the right thing there because men are toxic.
That doesn't line up with the initial segment of this interview where she said the only thing in capitalism that pays is a job.
Okay.
So I am assuming from that, is a complete advocate of women in the economic system, in the workforce. Mm-hmm. That is her ideal. And so she wants nothing holding that back.
Forcing children on the mother.
It's a disadvantage on the mother.
I see. We'll see.
That's what's happened in Canada.
Right, and in Britain we actually talk about access rather than custody, because the idea is not that you own the children, it's that you actually want to be able to see the children and spend time with them, and I think that's really important. But fault-based divorce is something that increases the chances of couples having a bad divorce, right? That's the problem, is it sets people against each other from the start. They have to go into court and contest that the other person has done something
Is it an interview?
wrong, which is not a great base on which to start then
She's teaching
an argument about
I think people
settle.
should be encouraged to divorce even if no one's done anything wrong.
No, I think that having to prove that in a court of law is not something that is going to lead you to a better arbitration about settling money and settling access to children. I think that's the point. You have a ridiculous situation where couples who say, well, actually, we've just grown apart. Nonetheless, unless they want to wait 5 years or 2 years for separation, they have to go in and plead unreasonable behaviour to get a divorce and start splitting up their assets. That's the joy of no-fault divorce, is that you don't have to make those contested cases. You can simply say, our marriage is no longer working.
Yeah, basically, who cares about the children?
Yeah, so that kind of validates my point. She's saying we should have no-fault divorce. Children should not be considered property. It should be about access. And so that means the responsibility for the children is equally shared. You see? So she wants an easier divorce where there's no fault, and she wants equally divided burden of the children so that the women are free to liberate themselves further in the capitalistic
But
system.
it just goes against all of the statistics about
I'm not arguing for the
fatherlessness.
merits or the demerits of that, but that's her perspective.
I know, it's just wrong.
Yeah.
Like, it's just going against the actual data on how children do with a single parent family. Like,
Yeah. It's
basically
above,
saying-
it's beyond the pale. No one should be advocating for easier divorces. They should be advocating for harder divorces, in my view.
Yeah, and I think Jordan Peterson, he would agree that, because he's talked a lot about marriage and the importance and how it affects
So let's crack
children.
on.
Okay.
And part ways without going into all of that acrimony. That seems quite sensible to me.
It also seems quite naive to me.
Well,
I've seen very few non-acrimonious divorces. They're very hard on kids. So I don't think anything that makes them easier is a very good idea. It might be good in the short term, but it's not good in the long term.
But
Unless you don't think that marriage is a useful institution. And if you think that it's part of the patriarchal tyranny, then you might think that as well. So, but it's a very useful institution, mostly for kids. So
I agree that I'm married. Modern marriage has a lot to recommend it. I do also think
Modern
it is a
marriage.
patriarchal institution. It is literally...
of course you think that.
Well,
because you think...
Wait, I had to hear that again. She's modern married? Is that what
No, she said modern marriage has a lot to offer.
Okay, let me hear it again. From 436.
I agree that I'm married. Modern marriage has a lot to recommend it. I do also think it is a patriarchal...
What did she say there?
Modern marriage has a lot to recommend it, is what I thought I
Modern
heard.
marriage. I thought it said, I'm modern married.
No,
Something.
I'm married myself. Modern marriage has a lot to recommend it.
Okay, I'm going to
And
go
I think
back.
she meant itself is what she...
Okay, I'm going back to 433.
institution, mostly for kids. So
I agree that I'm married. Modern marriage has a lot to recommend it. I do also think it is a patriarchal institution. It is literally...
of course you think that.
Well,
because you think virtually everything that occurs in our society is a patriarchal institution. And it's easy to think that because then you only have to think one thing.
You could
get a one thing answer for everything.
You could...
A one thing answer for everything.
And this is
Just
why
blame the men.
This is why the left can't meme.
Yeah.
Because they only have victim,
They don't have the one thing.
victimizer. That's the one-dimensional view of the world.
Yeah. That's crazy. So she says she's married, but then she also said that it is a part of the patriarchy. So she's subjecting herself to the patriarchy? Is that
She's
what you're
reforming it, I think she would have said.
saying? Okay. All right. 453.
Like it's part of the patriarchal institution.
I don't think you're obeying the rule that says maybe treat people as if they have something worth hearing. So
I'm not making a case for the patriarchal tyranny.
I'm gonna
and
make
I
it-
don't think you are either. I think that you're making a case that's like a universally cliched case for the patriarchal tyranny. I don't see too
Why
much
do
of you
women change
reflected
their
in your
names?
articles at all.
why do women change their names on marriage traditionally?
I don't know exactly. Why do you think they do?
Oh.
Because it was to symbolise the transfer of their ownership from one family to another family. That's why in The Handmaid's Tale you have off Warren,
Oh
off Glenn.
God, Margaret Atwood. Well, she was just about devoured by the feminists last year, so that was something interesting to observe.
I think she made a very good point. She wasn't devoured by all feminists. I'm a feminist. I thought what she said about due process in cases like that is perfectly reasonable.
Well, many people didn't.
Okay, what happened? Margaret Atwood said something?
I don't know
that
Margaret
upset
Atwood.
The feminists?
I'm not familiar with avant-garde feminism, so...
Okay. 541.
No, but then, guess what? This is on the internet. You can find someone who disagrees with pretty much anything. But so why do you think women change their names when they get married traditionally? If it's not about transfer of property ownership traditionally.
I don't know if I have an opinion about that. The specific reasons for that, I'd have to look into it for a fair amount of time before I decided it, but I certainly wouldn't boil it down to a unidimensional argument about the ownership of women by men. So,
Okay.
I mean, the part of the problem too is with this sort of discussion is that it's, and this is why I consider it a manifestation of ideological possession. It's predictable.
Well, that's what
Knowing your stance on.
But having a coherent ideology does mean that it is predictable, because
you don't need an ideology.
It is one logical thing that flows from another, and all those pieces tessellate together. So what I find very interesting about your thinking, I find it quite slightly baffling, is that I don't really see how all the pieces fit together. You say that you're not, you believe in God, but there's a lot of emphasis about going back to...
No, I actually say I act as if God exists.
Right. But,
which is actually my definition of belief.
Okay, well, that then doesn't, to me, tessellate very obviously with your insistence that we know actually it's just about pure science, and there's not a, because I can
what insistence that it's just about pure science?
Well,
I wrote Maps of Meaning. There's no insistence in that it's just about pure science.
Okay, but you make appeals to
science. What I mean is, different.
You make appeals to science all the time. You say, well, this is what the literature says, and the trouble with God is that ultimately you can't say this is what the literature says. There is no literature.
Which is why I don't say anything about the scientific status of God, apart from what can be experienced maybe under certain conditions of what would you call chemical-induced mysticism, which seems to be something that you can say something scientifically about. But I see that there's...
It's interesting. So she's made an assumption about him that was wrong. She assumed that he believed in God. And so then her one take on the whole issue was, well, if you believe in God, then you can't say that you believe in science. Yeah. Because clearly God and science are opposite. But in his response, he's like, actually, no, I don't believe in God.
But I do believe in God.
But I act as though...
Which is my definition of belief.
Yeah.
Did you catch that?
Oh, I see. Interesting.
So it's that whenever he's pinned on faith, he does that. He basically tries to find a way of answering but not answering.
Yeah, I think I'd rather that than him claim to be a Christian and then not have fully Christian views.
I'd rather he claim that he's not a Christian.
Yeah. I don't think he says he's a Christian, though. I don't think he does.
Two different realms, right? There's a realm of values and a realm of facts. And in the realm of facts, science reigns supreme. But it doesn't in the realm of values. You have to look elsewhere. That was what the humanities were for.
See, so that's a philosophical statement. There's this relationship between facts and values. Okay, so some philosophers believe that facts imply values. Mm-hmm. And some other philosophers believe that they're completely separate spheres. And they don't interact at all.
Interesting.
So he sounds like he's of the latter. Christianity is of the former.
Okay.
Certain facts, like the existence of God,
No,
listen to me.
Okay.
So facts imply values. They're connected.
Are you talking about the former?
Okay. So let's start over again. So certain people believe that facts imply values. That's one group.
Okay.
That's the former. The latter is certain people believe that facts and values exist separately and have no interaction.
Yeah. Okay.
And that science can probe facts, but science has nothing to say about values. Mm-hmm. Okay. Christianity and in the West, we believe in an integrated worldview where facts imply values.
That's
the fact of God's existence implies certain values and ethics. Okay, so it sounds like he's of the latter. Facts and values are separate.
Okay. But he's talking about science and values, isn't he?
No. The question was about facts and values. Rewind it a little bit.
Okay, so we're going to go back to like 728.
Say something scientifically about, but I see that there's two different realms, right? There's a realm of values and a realm of facts. And in the realm of facts, science reigns supreme. But it doesn't in the realm of values. You have to look elsewhere.
Interesting.
That was what.
So the only thing that can imply the basically science backs up facts, but they're separate from values, is what he's saying.
I mean,
so science doesn't tell you anything about values.
Yeah. So while it might be so while it might be true that science can only probe facts and not values, it's different than saying facts don't necessitate values, certain values. Okay?
That's interesting because how can you promote a lifestyle, for example, with his comment on the career versus caring and nurturing a family unit. And he clearly believes that if you're women who stay at home, who have a long-lasting marriage, who care for the children, that they'll create a better society. But his term "better," is that just valueless? Does that just mean it'll create something that historically will look like then the human population will increase? Is that what he's saying then?
I don't know.
Okay. Anyway, 7:41.
What the humanities were for, before they got, what would you say, hijacked by ideologues. And the idea that something should be consistent. You were talking about the necessity for consistency in ideology. It's like, I'm not hearing what you think. I'm hearing how you're able to represent the ideology you were taught. And it's not that interesting because I don't know anything about you. I could replace you with someone else who thinks the same way. And that means you're not here. That's what it means. It's not pleasant. So you're not integrating the specifics of your personal experience with what you've been taught to synthesize something that's genuine and surprising and engaging in a narrative sense as a consequence. And that's the pathology of ideological possession. It's not good. And it's not good that I know where you stand on things. Once I know a few things, it's like, why have a conversation? I already know where you stand on things.
I bet you don't know where I stand on all things.
I would hope that was true.
Ouch. So it's an interesting, it's almost like she's sitting in on some sort of psych session. like he's trying, it's not really an interview. It seems like an argument over how she can have just a one-dimensional point of view and how that's bad. I think that's what he's saying, right? Like,
well, yeah.
it's
so
boring.
he said it seems like after a few minutes of discussing with this person, what he's realized is that he's entered a conversation with an algorithm that is programmed with feminism. And so if you know feminism, you know every question that you probe it, you know the answer that's going to come out. So why am I talking to an algorithm is what he basically said. And then he goes on to say that is what he calls ideologic possession, almost like demonic possession. It's like saying an ideology possesses your body completely. So
ouch.
See, yeah, that's what's interesting is that instead of, as Christians, we're committed to a person. Okay, we are person committed. And whatever that person says is true, right, is what's truth. That's what Christianity basically is. Whereas this person is idea committed. Whatever comes out of that idea is true.
So anyway, what did you think about, clearly this is only a little piece of the whole long, I can't imagine him watching an hour and a half of that, to be honest. Because it was like myself. He said, it was really predictable. It's like you knew what kind of answer she expected from her question and what kind of response she would have.
I think so. Firstly, to say that I continue to admire his courage in saying things that are, although they are banal, as some people have said, such as encourage your daughters to be mothers and your husbands to be fathers, or that there's hierarchy. These are fairly simplistic statements that are acknowledged to be true through the thousands of ages. But in today's environment, it is so controversial to speak basic truths that it takes courage to do it. So I do continue to admire him in saying these very simple truths and not backing down whatsoever. So that's good.
Kind of off the topic though, is Felipe has got me now on Twitter. And in my Twitter sphere, it's really interesting to find so many other people that are a bit more conservative, more traditional, very much like Jordan Peterson. And one just recently, this guy at This Is Foster, Michael Foster, he posted something that was very banal, very banal. It was, I was born a man, I can't change that I'm a man. It's like, I'm a male, I can't change I'm a male. I accept I'm a male or something like that.
And I enjoy being
a man. Yeah. But then the comments under that were just like...
Were they crazy?
They were crazy. They hated him. They were like... They basically contradicted him by saying, well, God created me as a transgender. and therefore I am a transgender, and yeah, I enjoy being a transgender. Hashtag I'm non-binary.
Oh, I see.
And it just goes to show you that these very plain, trite, banal statements are what is needed today. People need to be saying them. We need to stop assuming that they're true to our next door neighbors, because I feel like our society has lost lost objectivity. They believe in relativism, which means everything can be true if you believe it. And now they're rejecting a simple thing such as that binary sexes and etc. It's crazy. It's crazy how the world we live in. Thanks for watching this video. We hope you enjoyed it. Leave us a comment below and let us know what other things you'd like us to react to. Please don't get too offended. We're here just spewing our own opinions, okay?
Giving our own opinions. I wouldn't say spewing.
Spew. Okay, we're giving our own opinions, and we welcome your opinions as long as they're respectful and don't use profanity, because we generally don't allow that on our channel.
Yep. If you really like what we do, you can buy t-shirts. We have a range of t-shirts available, and mugs and tote bags with logos, phrases, quotations, etc. They're really cool. Check them out.
Thanks for watching. Bye.
Bye.